For the past 30 years, America has fought in many conflicts, to include the Cold War, Iraq, Afghanistan, and Syria. We've learned about groups calling themselves the Taliban, Al-Qaeda, and ISIS, who have been hard at work terrorizing the world. Every day on TV, we can watch how domestic and foreign terrorism is becoming more and more common, and hear in the news about how America is becoming more divided as angry liberals and conservatives battle over ideas and power. Democracy has never been more at risk than it is today. Nobody knows this better than the incumbent Republican congressman from the small town of Costa Mesa, California, Dana Rohrabacher. Congressman Rohrabacher, for the first time in his long career, is facing strong competition from opponents on all sides. We were granted a rare opportunity with no time limits or restrictions to discuss with him a wide variety of topics. What we discovered was a humble man who has been instrumental in many historical events that very few can imagine. His list of accomplishments in Congress is extensive, but he prefers to work as a team member, letting others take the credit. If you've seen the movie Charlie Wilson's War or the new action thriller 12 Strong, you will have some idea of the world that he has lived in. He told us many of his efforts have saved thousands of American lives, and many of the things he has done, we believe, are still classified. We covered a number of national topics concerning Russia, healthcare, cyber warfare, the Trump wall, and many local and state issues such as sober living homes, sanctuary state, and taxes. In his no-nonsense style, he answered everything we asked, demonstrating his deep understanding and background of each topic, while knowing his unorthodox answers may be fuel for his political enemies. When our interview was complete, we felt like we were privy to a world only those with a top-secret government clearance could appreciate. They say that Hillary won your district in 2016, and because Hillary won in 2016, you're vulnerable this year. So tell me why, or why not, you're vulnerable. What happened in 2016?
Well, I know I have a fight on my hands. There's no doubt about that. But Hillary's taking the district is certainly a sign that this district could actually go toward the Democratic Party someday if pushed over in that direction. But, Hillary was someone who a lot of Republican women could vote for because they are interested in having a woman be president of the United States. And so I think that had much more to do with Hillary's election than did any hope that the Democratic Party now has the loyalty of the voters in this area.
Especially for the congressional districts. So tell me what or how you think 2018 is going to play out.
I think that basically the issues of the day would suggest that the Republicans will gain back seats and will actually will be on the offensive during this election. The Democratic Party has gone so far to the left, and they've done so much to try to disrupt President Trump's ability to be president, that there's bound to be a backlash by regular voters, especially in our district, feeling that they have been actually targeted by the radical left wing of the Democratic Party. And
so both nationwide and our district.
Absolutely.
You're not predicting a blue wave then?
No, I think that people will find out the same way they did on election night when all of the great pundits were saying that Donald Trump didn't have a chance and that Hillary was going to win, and they were so adamant right till the last minute. And they're going to be surprised this time too. Same thing. They're talking to each other, and this president has done so many things that the American people like, but of course his detractors are saying things about his personality that are questionable things about his personality, but the American people are looking for results, and that's why they'll go with the Republicans and throughout the country, and especially this district.
Okay, so you kind of look at Trump, you kind of hit on it a little bit, is a little bit of a litmus test. But what you're basically saying is that the personality side, which the mainstream media likes to play up and detract, you're saying basically his accomplishments are going to overshadow the personality, and people are going to stay, in the same analogy. They're going to be red, not blue.
Sure, and of course, remember, the people here are voting for Dana Rohrabacher, not Donald Trump. Don Trump is a good guy. I like him personally, but he's a flamboyant guy, and you've got to like that sort of stuff. And I'm a surfer. He's a golfer, and we have our different ways of approaching sports, but we have a different way of approaching the public. So I think that my methodology of these people know me. They know I'm a good person. They know I'm an honest person. I like to have honest discussions and honest disagreements. And so I think that if it's a personality thing, they may not like Trump's personality, but they're not going to use that against me. And as far as issues, I think Trump has made some tremendous successes, and the Democrats are so far to the left over with trying to basically allowing even illegal criminals to come into our state that we can't do anything about. So they'll vote for me and Republicans.
Talk to me about the Republican challenge at this point.
Well, on both ends, we've got millionaires who just have to be a member of Congress. Oh, they're going to do such a great job because who they are, they're something special. This is the way it is, whether it's a Republican or Democratic guys who got a lot of money and a lot of ego. And, I'll have to tell you, I'm not interested in being the congressman. I'm interested in getting things done. And they have been misreading what I have gotten done at Congress, because they are assuming what you get done in Congress is if you have your name on a bill. Mm-hmm. And that's because to them it's an ego thing, having your name on a bill.
Part of why they are running. Now, most of those millionaires, as you call them, are from the Democrat Party, at least this time around, right?
Most of them are, but we have our millionaire running.
Okay, so then on the Republican side, you've really not been challenged. You've all, the county party has had a kind of an unwritten rule. You don't challenge an incumbent Republican from the same party unless the guy has been grossly negligent, which I presume you would argue you have not been.
Correct.
Why do you think you're getting a challenge from the Republican side of the party?
Well, there's a group of people who do not like what Donald Trump's been doing. There's about 20% of the Republican Party. For example, they were behind Mark Rubio and his efforts to try to grant an amnesty and things such as that. And they have never been happy with me, because number one, I am a maverick. I do go out and do things that are not just right along the line with the party. But when I do stand up with the party, I'm pushing the party to be tougher on things like illegal immigration, where you've got the wealthiest part of our party. A lot of them are actually in favor of having more illegals come here because they have cheap labor. And they claim to have bought into, we have to be more humane to someone just because they've come here illegally. Well, I'm sorry, no, that really isn't what's driving it. It's economic factors, and you've got that group in the Republican Party who doesn't like me, and they're willing to help finance somebody, and they don't like Trump, and they're willing to finance somebody against me.
So you do look at it as being more idealistic or issue-oriented as far as the challenge from the Republican Party. They don't like the fact that you are...
That's right.
That you stick up for the people.
Well, ordinary people. And I have always been that type of a Republican. I've been a Ronald Reagan Republican. If you wanted to put it in terms of Republicans, so I'm a Reagan Republican who now is supporting Trump. And that's the way I have always been. The people who are financing my opponent, most of them were not satisfied with Reagan, and they certainly don't like Trump, and they haven't liked Trump. So it's just a different approach that the Reagan people and the Trump people are sort of working class, regular middle class Americans, and we want to watch out for them. That's why Trump says we want to make sure all of our trade treaties benefit us, where other people who are a little bit higher in the income scale, who are Republicans, a lot of them are bought in to, for example, the global government concept of trade. So if we have a problem with a country that's not doing right, we have to go to a trade organization worldwide to deal with it, rather than deal directly with that government.
So you're looking at more as call it the country club Republicans versus the blue collar or middle class Republicans.
I think you could say that, except I will have to say there's a lot of people in the country clubs who are good conservatives, and I think that they understand that Ronald Reagan and Trump are the kind of Republicans they believe in, and not the people who are more on the liberal side of the Republican Party.
Okay, so some people will argue that you've just been there too long. You've been there 30 years by the time you finish this term, so you're going for that 16th election, right, and the 32nd year in office. What do you say to them when they say you've been there just too long?
Well, I think whatever's best for my constituents is what the issue is. And is it better for my constituents to have someone with 30 years of seniority, who I've been the chairman of a number of subcommittees. I never wanted to be the chairman of a full committee, except I would like to be the chairman of the science committee, which I have a chance, the full science committee now. But I've been the chairman of various subcommittees and been very active. I have lots of experience, lots of contacts here and around the world that can be put to use for my own constituents, but also for our country. To give up my seniority, to have somebody come in who has none of these contacts, very few, and no seniority, is not good for my constituents, nor is it good for my country.
Okay, so if you were to talk to your constituents today, why should they reelect you?
Well, my constituents should reelect me because they believe in the policies, the pro-America, America First policies that I exemplify. My support for President Trump to building the wall, for example, and my opponent couldn't even use the word illegal alien 10 years ago. Now he's calling them illegal aliens. They was undocumented workers. Well, I'm sorry. I've been protecting the interests of the American people all along. So they can trust me to do that. And I have been for 30 years. They know what things I voted for, what I voted against. My opponent, of course, has been a lobbyist for a number of things like sober living homes and such. People have to take a look. It's a choice between two people. It's not a choice between someone, oh, Dana's been in 30 years, we're going to get somebody, that means it's going to be better. No, that doesn't mean that. It just means it's going to be somebody else. And what does that person believe? What kind of seniority, what kind of experience do they have? I think I'm the best candidate.
Okay, so your 30 years of experience, you talked about a couple of generalities. What can you look back in that 30 years and say have been your big accomplishments? Obviously, you talked about authoring bills, and I think your opponents throughout the chief, you've only authored 3 bills that have been successful.
Right.
But tell your constituents what it is that you've accomplished in the last 30 years.
Well, I've accomplished, there's so many things that I've actually accomplished and got into law, but also, which is important. I mean, I will detail that in a moment. But what's also important is when I stopped getting into law, I have stopped people with all this nonsensical controls and tax increases that have been come my way. I've received awards from all of these taxpayer and good government organizations, the Chamber of Commerce, etc. So stopping the bad stuff is certainly an accomplishment. Mm-hmm. I didn't become one of those guys who go there and were just part of the establishment. And so that's number one that I've accomplished. I still am a man who identifies with our people here rather than identifies with some power structure in Washington or whatever. So that's number one. Legislatively, I've got lots of things I've accomplished, except it's not like, it's different than what my opponent would say. Your name's not on the bill. Well, that's a big ego thing, having your name on the bill. What's important is if you actually affected the policy that exists for the benefit of our people.
So kind of the Reagan mantra of if you don't care who gets the credit, you can accomplish a lot.
That was right in front of me on Reagan's desk, and I worked in the White House with him for 7.5 years. Every time I sat at the Oval Office, sat at that desk, there's that sign saying, if you don't care who gets the credit, there's no limit to what you can accomplish. And for example, I'll give you an example of this. So I've only had 3 bills that had my name on it, but numerous bills have my amendments in the bill, which makes all the difference to policy. For example, I'm offering 6 amendments to the FAA bill. There's a new FAA authorization bill coming through. And I have 6 amendments which would require airplanes that are coming over our district and making too much noise to fly at the highest possible altitude that is safe for them to fly at, rather than for having them up there at 35 or 4,000 feet, rather than at 1,500 feet. And
well, as a Newport Beach City Councilman, I can really appreciate that, and so can my constituents, because it is probably the number one issue.
well,
in this
that's
district.
probably, but you see, if you're looking at whose name is on that bill, my name isn't going to be the author of the bill, but I'm going to be part of the amendments in that bill that really make a difference. There'll be, I'm proposing 6 of them. That's what I accomplished, even though my name's not the author of the bill. You multiply that by hundreds, because I've had that kind of major impact on numerous pieces of legislation. But where I have personally got involved with actually authoring bills and taking the lead on 2 issues. One has been, I've been trying to defend America's patent rights, the big guys and the corporate and international corporations, multinational corporations, been trying to eliminate the patent system so they can steal stuff. I've thwarted that. But I've also was the author of the Commercial Space Act of 2004, which laid the entire foundation. And without it, you wouldn't have SpaceX. Without it, you wouldn't have Virgin Galactic. There are private companies, due to this foundation that I laid legally in that bill, that are now putting billions of dollars into the American space program. And what does that mean? Thousands of jobs locally, as well as tens of thousands throughout the United States. Because we didn't just rely, what it was is I was overseeing the budget of NASA. We didn't have the money to do everything NASA needed to do. So I said, what are we going to do? And I said, let's bring in private investment. Let them do what they can do and leave NASA to do what it has to do. And that formula has really added so many billions of dollars to our whole space program, America's technological capabilities, and the employment rate in our area.
Yeah, we have a lot of aerospace engineers. I think Sacramento has done an excellent job of scaring and getting rid of a lot of our employment base in California as it runs to states with lesser regulations.
Well,
but still, aerospace is a huge industry.
and we're on an edge now because of the state legislature. If the state legislature takes Prop 13 and bifurcates it so that just the homeowners get the protection, that the businesses don't, these big companies like Boeing, which owns huge numbers of buildings, they will immediately leave. The only reason they're here now is those big structures, those manufacturing structures, won't go up, and the taxes won't go up unless they're sold, till they're sold. That's a great protection. That's why they have stuck here. Boy, we're on the edge of losing a lot of jobs if the state legislature tries something like that, saying businesses no longer have Prop 13 coverage.
Now, you were one of Reagan's speechwriters.
Yes, and a special assistant to the president.
Get to do all the special projects, some on the books, some off the books. So, as you grew up under Reagan. You got your political teeth. Your philosophical viewpoint is very Reagan-esque in a lot of the things you do, which I'm sure has a lot to do with why people don't like you. One of the things that Reagan said was what he called or referred to as the 11th Commandment. I'll paraphrase that basically, thou shalt not speak ill of other Republicans. And yet, you've got Republican challengers, and you're already in a mail war with each other. I'll say talking ill about each other, whether they're lies or fabrications or truth, and people just don't like it. I'll leave that up to the voters. But tell me how you're approaching your campaign as far as differentiating yourself from, in this case, the other Republicans. And how does Reagan's...
How does that fit in with...
Yeah, how does it apply?
Well, it applies this way, that Ronald Reagan did not mean for him to don't speak ill of another Republican. He didn't mean that to mean don't tell the truth about your opponent. And as long as you're telling the truth, and it's something that the public deserves to know, I don't consider that to be speaking ill of another Republican. For example, I would never think about trying to attack my opponent's private life, or he shouldn't attack my private life. You have personal things in your life, whatever they are, and I wouldn't dream of it. But in terms of policies and of issues and of actual what your track record is, he has every right to question my track record and ask me about the very questions you're asking me about. And I have every right to question what he's been doing and what policies he's been pushing and how they would impact our constituency. I've been a member of the Congress, and I have a track record. It's okay for him to hit it and say and talk about that track record. It's okay for me to talk about his track. He's been a lobbyist for most of these years. What has he lobbied for? These things, do we want a lobbyist who is lobbied for sober living homes or high density development in our area? Do we want a person with that track record, or do you want someone with a track record of I voted for this or that bill? And let him criticize that all he wants, and I will criticize the things he's been doing. And as I say, I mean, he's even stooped over saying, well, Dana Rohrabacher's received $3 million in federal funds. Well, I've paid. I've paid as a congressman for 30 years, and all of that adds up to, I guess, $3 million or something. But
you mean you've never taken the time to add it up?
No, I haven't, and that's the payroll. I think it's a lot more honorable to earn $3 million in pay over 30 years than it is to earn how many millions he's earned being a lobbyist for the last 10 and 15 years.
Okay, so to be fair, lobbyists get a bad name because they're being paid to advocate for a client. But you can pick your clients, right? So you can pick clients that are reasonable, reputable. For instance, if you were to take, I know you haven't taken the private lobbying side, but if you wanted to lobby for SpaceX, okay, there's a good company, reputable company, and you want them to be able to do what they want to do. And I picked that only because you're part of the Space Committee. So just because your opponent's a lobbyist doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. It all depends on who he's lobbying for.
Well,
is he bending his ideals for his client because of money?
Well, it also depends on your personality. There's some people who will, and I don't know everything that he's lobbied for. I know a few of the things that seem to be out of line and out of touch with what's in the interest of average homeowners here. I mean, so one of the big issues here are sober living homes, and I've had lots of meetings, and I'm actually working on legislation right now to counteract this idea that we have sober living homes in residential areas. You should not have alcoholics and drug addicts put in homes in a residential community. I in fact, there was one across the street from me about 6 years ago before I moved into this house. It was in Costa Mesa, and I walked outside, and my 8-year-old son is talking to some drug addict from across the street alone. I mean, there's no one there to supervise that. There's a legitimate reason to say that you should not have sober living homes with drug addicts and alcoholics in residential areas. If they want to put them in commercial areas, if they want to put them in industrial areas, that's fine. But, we have, okay, so is that there? The public will have to determine, when he lobbied for that, is that something they want? And if they look at my record and they say, well, Dana has always been a hard guy on any type of amnesty. I have opposed an amnesty for illegals. Is that being too nasty and mean? Doesn't that reflect a hard-heartedness that we don't want to represent us? That would be an honest debate. Mm-hmm. I mean, my opponent voted to give in-state tuition to illegal immigrants. I not only oppose that, I think illegal immigrants should not be given any government benefits. And in fact, my opponent gave a speech saying that was not the right moral position to have, to deny benefits. Well, we have only limited money. It should be going to our people, not to people who've come here illegally. Let the public decide on issues, both whether you've been a lobbyist or whether you've been a member of Congress.
Okay, great issues, great differentiation between you and your opponent. And I do have to say that as a Newport Beach City Councilman, I really appreciate your staff has contacted me recently regarding the rehab homes. And Newport Beach and Costa Mesa have been having to deal with the issues and problems surrounding rehab homes. And it's not been a very pleasant process.
Well, take for example, what we have when we talk about sanctuary states. And people say, what have you done as a member of Congress? What are you proud of? I'm proud that I have led local fights here and been a leader locally, as well as been in Washington on specific legislation, and then internationally being involved in issues that are important to our country. But I went around and visited at your city council, as well as several others here, Fountain Valley and Costa Mesa and Alicio Viejo, and I asked them to officially oppose, and Huntington Beach, and officially oppose the sanctuary city law here in the state. And they all did, and I was very gratified by that.
I think there's only a couple cities left in your district that have not, and I think that's just a matter of time.
Right.
So let's go on to sanctuary cities. In a nutshell, tell me why you think sanctuary cities, SB 54 as it's known
Right.
here in California, why is that bad?
SB 54 prevents local cities with their own police departments from working in cooperation with federal law enforcement and immigration officials when dealing with criminal illegal aliens. These people are so far to the left that they have abandoned us to criminal illegal aliens, not just people who are here illegally, but the ones who've come here and committed crimes. This is a horror story. Number one, that in and of itself makes us vulnerable. But even worse, what do you think criminals throughout the world now, and especially those who have access to sneak into our country, what country are they going to go to? They're going to be attracted to California because we won't even let our law enforcement cooperate with federal law enforcers to handle criminal illegals. So we're going to attract in a whole bunch more people. It'll cause rapes, murders, and everything else of our own people. It's a travesty. It is a betrayal of the American people.
A good example of that, and this is not something that obviously that we want to make light of, but Kate Steinle was murdered up there in San Francisco by an illegal alien that was a criminal. Had been deported 5 times, been arrested and for felonies 7 times, and the San Francisco police had just recently released him, even though he was under wants and warrants from ICE.
Right.
They released him to the general public. Now he's just let off. The jury found him not guilty of even involuntary manslaughter of Kate. It was an accidental shooting, according to the jury.
Supposedly.
But she would be alive today.
That's right.
If they had called ICE
Right.
and he had been deported.
There are a significant number of Californians who've experienced this now. And yes, legal immigrants do commit some crimes sometime, but we're only talking about illegal immigrants. By the way, what bothers me the most about these discussions is that people on the left always put legal and illegal in the same camp. People who've come here legally are usually very, very good citizens. They eventually become citizens. And if they're here legally, they want to be here and they want to obey the rules. People, by putting illegals and legal into the same category, they're doing a tremendous disservice to the legal immigrants in our country.
And the sanctuary state movement does that. They're trying to basically paint anybody that's against immigration, or anybody that's against illegal immigration,
Right.
as being against immigration.
And this has been a tough fight. And, my opponent, as I say, he's using the word illegal, he's against illegal immigration now in his literature. But, there are a number of speeches that we have recorded of him where he's using the words undocumented worker and how important it is not to cut them off from all benefits, because starve them away. Well, no, I'm sorry. They aren't undocumented workers. These people that we're talking about are people who have all kinds of documents. They just don't have the right documents. They don't have the documents that make them here legally. And so I think it's vital that we get. We've been tough on this issue all along. Unlike other, as I say, many other Republicans who just step up when they have to. And I think that it's bringing our state down. So we better if we can't draw the line against making sure that we're dealing with criminal illegal aliens, what can we do on this issue if we can't at least do that?